pray and meditate and fast and do all of these other things. And if I'm not doing it, then I'm not good enough. Does anybody feel like that? Oh, it's just me? Okay, me and Becca. Cool. So I think that as we grow up in church, it kind of becomes like this toss-up with legalism. Like if I follow all the rules and if I do all the right things, then I'm going to earn my salvation and Jesus is going to help me. And I didn't realize until way later, until I was like, I think I was like 18 or 19 when I finally realized that Jesus doesn't want me because I do all of these things. It's because he just wants to be in a relationship with me. And that took me a really long time. And I think there's two sides of this struggle. So there's one, what I already talked about, like feeling guilty for not following all the rules and feeling like you have to do more, for not doing enough. Then the other side is having like this huge amount of pride in doing a lot. And I think I do both of them. I think I feel bad that I'm not doing more, but I also feel really proud of myself if I do a lot of things. And only last week, so you guys know that I really love rules. I love structure. I love making rules so that we can be successful. I apply rules to a lot of things in my life, to my teaching, to how I date, to how I interact with my siblings. Rules are awesome. But I realized, well, I didn't realize, God told me a week ago, he was like, okay, listen, you have all of these rules, and he picked out one specifically, and he was like, you are not trusting me. You are insisting that this rule is going to save you, and you're not letting go of this thing that you're holding on to. So even though these rules are awesome, there are a lot of rules about fasting, about meditation, guidelines to help you be successful. If you are allowing that rule to become more important than your relationship with Christ, then we've missed it. Does that make sense? There shouldn't be a feeling of guilt if you're not doing it, and there shouldn't be a feeling of pride if you are doing it. The focus should be that these tools are to help you stay close to Jesus. Does that make sense? So it's not a way to earn his love and acceptance. It should be something that helps you create that personal relationship with him. Spiritual disciplines need to come after you've established your personal relationship with Jesus. If you don't know if you have a personal relationship with him, that's where you need to focus first before you turn and start trying to fast or meditate or do any of those things. Yeah? Okay, I'm going to read our main scripture, and then I'm going to pray, and then we will get into this. So, John 4:32, I think through 34-ish. And it says, the disciples were urging him, saying, Rabbi, eat. But he said to them, I have food to eat that you do not know about. So the disciples said to one another, has anyone brought him something to eat? And Jesus said to them, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. All right, I'm going to pray. Jesus, thank you for tonight. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to this group of people about you and about how awesome you are. And I just pray that you would help us stay focused tonight, that you would get us excited about being able to practice a couple of things that will help us stay closer to you and focus on who you are instead of all the other distractions around us. And I just pray that this would be purposeful and that you would speak through me. We love you and we praise you in your name. Amen. Okay.
What
so
was the scripture again? I'm sorry.
Oh, John 4:32 through 34-ish.
Okay, thank you.
Something in there? Anyway, I'll read it again later. Okay. So we're talking about fasting, which classically is you don't eat for a certain period of time. Right? We've all heard of this. Some of you are probably like, oh, awesome. Some of you are like, oh, this is not for me. This is not my fast. This is not my spiritual discipline. That's how I kind of feel about it. Like, I'm not passionate about fasting. I'd rather not. I feel like I have a lot of good excuses just to avoid it. But I think that the world looks at it very specifically. So fasting is usually thought about, okay, like, fasting is like a diet, right? So if we're required for Lent to do a certain amount of some type of fasting 40 days before Easter, every year comes around, I'm like, all right, I'll do no sugar until Easter because then I know that I'll lose weight, and that's good. But then it turns into, okay, the purpose is just to lose weight instead of actually using it for a spiritual gain. Or maybe as Americans, we don't even realize that we have never ever been hungry. So we're like skipping a meal, but there's Taco Bell right there. Like, this will be so easy. Like, Americans do not go hungry. It's too easy. Like, we are not a culture that says, okay, we're going to eat this much and then be good. No, like, Americans eat. We don't skip meals. We don't know what starvation is. When I lived in England, people brought this up to me all the time. They'd be like, oh, you're American, but you're really fit. What? That's the most inappropriate comment I've ever heard. Or they'll be like, wow, you eat a lot. Is that how much they eat in America? Like, oh, that is comments about food. Yeah. But anyway, Americans have a weird culture when it comes to food. Fasting is not part of that culture. But if you look on the side of religion, fasting is a totally different thing. Usually, like, the Pharisees would fast and make a big deal about it, and like it talks about in the Bible about like their faces being all like weird, like they're in pain and they're saying, I'm suffering for Christ. But that's not really what we're talking about either. Like, if you're gonna starve yourself for a week and make a big deal about it and talk about it all the time, like, that is not the fasting that we're talking about. The fasting that we're talking about is intentionally taking something out of what you usually do. It could be food, it could be something else, and creating space in your life in order to focus on Jesus. So there are certain things, okay, so I'm gonna back up a little bit. So the gospel way to look at fasting versus the way the world looks at it or the way religion looks at it is that we need to recenter our lives on Christ and look to Him. And so one of the ways we can do that is intentionally taking something that's going to distract you and taking it out of your life and then using that space that's been created in order to focus on Him. So that's where you would put like meditation or prayer or just sitting in silence or solitude and listening to Him. So these spiritual disciplines kind of overlap with what we've talked about already. So I don't want you to limit yourself to thinking, okay, fasting, that means I have to skip breakfast. And I have a test later today, and I'm going to get a migraine, and I'll probably fail the test, but it's fine because I'm fasting. Like, that's not what I'm asking you to do. We have so many distractions. Food is totally a distraction. That could be an awesome thing for you to do, but it doesn't have to be limited to that. So when we talk about what you're going to fast from, there are certain things that you're going to be prone to put your hope in instead of Jesus, right? So if you are wondering, wait, that didn't make sense. I think I made some jump. Okay, hang on, I know what I'm saying. So, there are certain things that we don't, that we can depend on that aren't Jesus, right? So if you are having a bad day, or you get a bad grade on a test, or if something terrible happens, what do you immediately turn to? Like, what brings you comfort and security or significance, or just like a feeling of, okay, I'm gonna be okay? Like, a few things that I turn to are probably friends. Like, I'll go and text someone and be like, this happened, please help me, and I'll look to them for encouragement or help. Or I'll turn to food. I'll be like, you know what, this is a bad day, but there's still yogurt milk, so it can't be that bad. I'll just go to yogurt milk. Or maybe I'll go to TV. I'll be like, okay, I don't want to focus on what's happening in my life right now. Instead, I'm going to sit here and watch a movie or 18 shows on Netflix. So if something happens and you immediately turn and do something else in order to cope with that, that might be a sign that that's something that you're putting your hope in, or you're looking to for trying to find some comfort or security or significance, right? So when we look to fast from something, you're going to select one of those things that kind of turns you away from Jesus and puts your dependence on something else. So your first job for today is to grab one of those pieces of paper, and I want you to make a list of all the distractions that you think you might put your hope in other than Jesus. So if it's food, if it's a relationship, if it's a video game, if it's I don't know what it's going to be for you, but I want you to make a list of like 6 to 8 different things that you might put your hope in other than Jesus. And I'm going to give you like 3 minutes. As you think of more things, you can add to that list as you go. And you're going to talk about this list later in your small groups too. Okay, so we have a list of things that you put your hope in other than Jesus. And these might be big things or small things. They might be things that you can totally fast from, or things that you're going to have to deal with in some other way. Fasting isn't going to be applicable to all of them. But the point is to recognize that there are things that you are dependent on that are not Jesus. So if we look back up at our scripture, it says the disciples were urging him saying, Rabbi, eat. They were saying, come on, you have to eat. You know that you need to be physically healthy. You haven't eaten yet. Can we give you some food to take care of you? And he said, I have food to eat that you do not know about. And the disciples were immediately like, okay, who gave you food? They're like, okay, you said that you had food that we don't know about, so someone must have literally given you food to eat. And he was saying, no, listen, you guys are so dumb. My food is to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. My food is not that physical food that you're talking about, but the realization that I'm dependent on the Father, and I will be given everything that I need in order to accomplish his work. Does that make sense? I think I'm always the disciple who's going, okay, but you gotta eat, right? Like I can take care of you, and you need to take this care of this physical need, instead of saying, all right, I know that Jesus is gonna provide for us, and I don't need to be filling all of these needs in practical ways. So, what am I saying? The point is not whether or not you're eating, whether or not you're gonna fast from food. It's recognizing who you are dependent on. So regardless of what you're going to fast from, if it's from your phone, if it's from a game, if it's from a particular person or a particular activity, it's not whether or not you're doing that thing, but it's recognizing that you are not dependent on anything other than Jesus. Okay? So the purpose of fasting is to remind ourselves that our hope is not created by anything other than Jesus. And there can also, and that can just be it. Like that can just be, okay, I need some space in my life to remember where my hope is and who I'm dependent on. But you can also use fasting as a way to answer questions or help you with decisions. Do you remember that big, like, was it March that we did the church fasting? Yes? Yeah. So our church is trying to decide what our future looks like with this building. Like, are we going to stay with this building? Are we going to find a new building? Are we going to try and buy something else? Are we going to try and move to a different area of the city? Like, what does that look like for us? And we don't know what the future looks like. So we took March as a church, and we had people sign up. Did you guys hear about this? Yes? Sounds familiar? And people were fasting for the entire month of March, which did not mean that there were people who didn't eat for the whole month of March. They just took like breakfast one day, and then somebody else took off lunch the next day, and somebody else fasted through dinner. So there was always at least one person fasting through March in order to create that space as a church to be intentional about that decision. So instead of eating, they would take that time in order to pray about what we should do about the building, and like pray for our elders, pray for our pastors, saying, how can we make this decision as a church? So fasting is not just for, okay, you're not going to do something. It's also, this is a time to invest in your relationship with Jesus, and also it can help you listen and make decisions. So if you select something that you're going to fast from, you can also select a specific purpose. So if you're trying to listen about a particular issue, answer a certain question, deal with a certain situation, or you just need some space in your life to listen to God. So it's a super practical way to help us take our minds from distractions and unhealthy dependencies, recognize that there are things that are taking our focus away from God, and then focus on who you should be depending on. Okay? So, we're gonna finish really early. Let's look at this practically. So how are we going to plan how to fast? First of all, you need to be smart about this, okay? I'm gonna give you a story of how I was not smart about this. I turned 21 2 years ago? Last year. So I'm 22. Okay, I can do math. I turned 21, and we were going through Celebration of Discipline, so the book that we're studying as a group. We were going through that book with my community group. And on the week that I was turning 21, we were on fasting. And we met on Mondays, and the Monday was my birthday, and they're like, okay, we're gonna fast all day Monday, and then we're gonna have a birthday party for Holly and celebrate her 21st. And I was like, not eat all day and then consume alcohol for the first time. Not a good combination, okay? I also have a couple of health issues, like I'm hypoglycemic, and I had like a kidney infection one time where I ended up on antibiotics, which means that I can't drink like caffeinated coffee anymore. All of these things means that fasting from food not a good idea for me, okay? So instead of fasting from food, I decided that I would fast from music for the day. Because I always listen to music in my car, I'm always listening to music if I'm like not currently working, like there's always music on. And so I took that out of my life, that created some space for that day, and then I used that day to intentionally pray, okay? So maybe food isn't the thing that you're going to do. Maybe fasting from your phone would be helpful, but you know that your mom is going to be really upset if she can't text you during the day and know where you are, all right? Be smart about this. You are not needing to take something out that's going to create other problems. However, if you can take your phone out of your day, that might be helpful for some of you. I don't know. You do not have to feel like you have to fast from food or you have to fast from something specific. Take something that's going to create space, but also be smart about it. If you're turning 21, maybe eat something during the day before you go drink for the first time, okay? So maybe you're going to look at sports or academics or not shop for a week or don't play video games or maybe, I don't know, not spend money or not do online shopping. That would probably be a good thing to fast from, for me, actually. But it needs to be something that's going to create space in your life, okay? Then you have to make a plan, okay? You have to make a decision to fast. You can't just be like, okay, yeah, good idea, fasting from my phone, that would be awesome to do. You have to actually make a practical structure for that. So, are you going to fast for 24 hours? Are you going to fast for 3 days? Are you going to fast for a week? Is it going to be just from like, I don't know, 8 when you get home from school until the next morning so that you have that space in the evening that you would be on your phone and then you're not going to be on your phone? Make sure that you write it down and commit to it so that you know exactly what you're doing. If you don't make a decision and a plan, it's not going to happen. Yeah, make a plan. So here's your next job. Are you ready? I want you to circle 2 things off your list that you think you could feasibly fast from. I'll give you 60 seconds. Pick 2.
Did you say easily?
Feasibly.
Easily.
So that basically means easily. I could have said that. That would have been easier. Being smart. An English teacher, Josiah. Focus. Okay, do you have 2 things circled? I'm seeing us lose focus, so I'm going to go with, yeah, we're ready to move on. Okay, you have 2 things circled. Now I want you to write on your paper, plan to fast, and then put a line underneath it, because you're going to make a plan right underneath that. Okay, your next job, you're going to write down what, why, and when. And put some space in between them because you're going to fill them in. Sorry to mess you up, Ethan. Sorry. Okay, so what are you going to fast from? You're going to pick from those 2 things that you already circled. And maybe you're not sure and you want to discuss this with your small group. That's totally awesome. You're going to start outlining your plans, but I want you to finish this with your group so that you can bounce ideas off each other, ask them what they're thinking. Then you're going to pick a reason why. Are you focusing on fasting from this thing because you need to spend more time with Jesus? Or is it because you have a specific problem that you need an answer about? Is it a specific question? What is it that you need to fast for? Okay? Then you're going to say, is the next one when? I said when. So when? How long? And so how long? Is it going to be a certain chunk of the day? Is it going to be a series of days? Will it be for a week? Is it going to be like 1 day a week for the next month? How are you going to structure that? And I want you to be super practical about it. I don't want you to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to fast from sugar for the next 5 months. You're not going to be able to manage that, okay? But you could fast from sugar for the next 3 days, all right? I want you to start with something smaller that you know you can accomplish versus something huge that you're just going to get overwhelmed with and quit halfway through, okay? And that's something you need to talk to your small group about as well. Maybe you're like, I know I can go 10 days without video games, and your buddies are going to be like, dude, there's no way that's possible. Then the other piece of this is that if you say aloud in your small group, gentlemen, I'm going to fast for 10 days from video games, then you have 5, 6, 8 other people that can say, okay, did you manage that? Or did you have a hard time keeping that up? Then you'll have accountability with your group, okay? So that's the goal. We're gonna complete these plans tonight, and then when you come back to group next week, we'll be able to check in with each other and say, all right, did we manage to do this? Or did we struggle with it? Why was it hard? What did you learn from it? Did it help you become more dependent on Jesus? So we're gonna have about 4 minutes before we need to go to small groups that I want you to keep working on your plan individually before you go talk. Yeah.
Can you give me the whys again? I got
Oh, the
more
why?
time with Jesus, need an answer.
So are you like wanting an answer to a certain question? Is there a certain issue you want to be praying about? Are you just wanting to listen to God? Just creating space? If you have no idea why you might need to fast, maybe that's a good time to say, okay, I'm just going to listen for what God needs to convict me on. Just give yourself a reason. And it doesn't have to be specific. It can just be, I need to focus on my relationship with Jesus. Okay. So we have 4 minutes before we go to group. I want you to look at this plan on your own, and then when you go to your small group, you're going to talk to your group about it. And remember that the focus of this is not, you need to lose weight, so you're going to take sugar out and fast for a month. And it's not, okay, I need to focus less on my phone and more on my friends. Although those might be great things to focus on for you as a person. But the focus is to remember that we are completely dependent on Jesus, and it should not be, we can't be distracted by all of these things and forget who we really need to be focused on. Yeah, Kate?
What?
Exactly, yeah. Okay. Make sense? We know what we're doing? Okay. I'm going to pray for us, and then I think John will come up and send us to our groups in about 3 minutes. Okay? Jesus, thank you for tonight. I just pray that as we plan how we're going to fast in the next couple weeks, that you would be present in that we would remember to focus on you, that you would remind us of who we are, and that you would just use this time to pull us back into your presence. And we love you and we praise you in your name. Amen.